Hey everyone, welcome to the Shadow Hours. I'm Jamie, and if you love scary, unexplained, and creepy stories, you are in the right place. So turn off the lights, get comfortable, and listen closely. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and leave your true horror stories in the comments or send them to my email if you want me to read them. But with that being said, let's dive on in. Today, I have for you 2 true scary horror stories from Reddit. Our first story comes from Reddit thread, Let's Not Meet, posted by the user, The Dragon Reborn 726. I work in the criminal justice field, so I see a lot of strange things. And I'll admit, I can be a little paranoid. I'm into scary movies, true crime, and of course this subreddit, so I'm used to unsettling stories. But this felt different because it happened to me. It was close to midnight, my girlfriend's roommate was working a night shift, and I was outside walking her dog. The neighborhood was a quiet, safe New York suburb, the kind of place where nothing ever happens. The streets were empty because of quarantine, no people, no cars, just silence. The dog was sniffing around in the grass near a rotary in the middle of the parking lot. I was scrolling on Reddit, not really paying attention, when I noticed the dog suddenly freeze, just staring at the road. That's when I looked up and saw a black SUV stopped in the rotary. At first, I didn't think much of it. I pulled my mask up, assuming that maybe they were just COVID sticklers ready to argue. But then, I noticed something that immediately put me on edge. The SUV wasn't moving, and inside, there was a family. A mom, a dad, and a girl who looked maybe 12. And all 3 of them were staring directly at me. Blank faces, no expression at all. I gave a small wave, no reaction. I tried to act normal and continue walking the dog, but the SUV slowly rolled forward, circling the rotary. When they passed me again, they were still staring. No talking, no smiling, no acknowledgement, just cold, unblinking stares. This happened again and again and again. The family kept driving in slow circles, watching me like I was the only thing in the world. I finally raised my arms like, "What do you want?" But they said nothing, didn't even roll down a window, just stared. When they turned off the rotary, I felt a wave of relief. Until I realized they were now heading directly toward me, following me. I picked up my pace. They picked up theirs. I didn't want them knowing where my girlfriend lived, so I stopped on the sidewalk and turned to face them. The SUV stopped about 30 feet away. All 3 of them were still staring, but now the little girl had moved to the center seat just to see me better. It was one of the creepiest things I've ever seen. No emotion, no curiosity, just staring, like they weren't even human. I typed her license plate into my phone on instinct, then slowly backed toward the building. Finally, they rolled to the far end of the lot, still watching me, until I slipped inside and locked the door. I ran upstairs and watched from the window. The SUV returned to the exact spot where I had been standing and just sat there for minutes, not moving, not leaving, just waiting. And then finally, they drove away. A normal-looking family, a quiet suburb, a random night, and no explanation at all, to the creepy family in a black SUV. Let's never meet, because I still don't know what you wanted, and I'm scared to know the answer. I've experienced many odd and unexplainable events in my life, but this one has stayed on my mind for years. I finally decided to tell it, and I pray I'm not the only one who's gone through something like this. So, let's start from the beginning. I graduated high school in 2019 and was promoted to supervisor of a kitchen at a nursing home down the street. Since I oversaw dinner, I didn't start work until 3:30 p.m. and usually got home around 10. That meant I had the first half of every day completely to myself, and I loved it. Solitude was peaceful, especially for someone as introverted as I am. Normally, I would sleep in until noon, but that day, I decided to relax on the couch in our main living room and watch Kitchen Nightmares. I remember nodding off into a light sleep, the kind where any small sound can wake you. The first couple of times I cracked my eyes open, it was just my cats jumping on me. So when I felt the cushion near my feet sink, I assumed it was my cat Peach. After a moment, I opened my eyes and saw my younger sister sitting at the end of the couch with her back toward me. I was still half asleep, so I didn't think much of it. I figured she must have stayed home from school sick. I asked her to move her head a little so I could see the TV, but she didn't respond, still facing the screen. I asked her, why was she home? Again, silence. I got a little annoyed, assumed she was just ignoring me, and closed my eyes, drifting back to sleep. About an hour later, I got up to get ready for work. That's when I realized my sister wasn't in the room or anywhere in the house. Confused, I called her name. No answer. I tried a few more times, still nothing. So I called my mom and asked if my sister mentioned going anywhere. My mom sounded confused and said, "What are you talking about? I dropped her off at school this morning." My sister had been at school the entire time. I hung up shocked. I kept the whole situation to myself, convinced I must be losing my mind. But I remembered everything. What my sister was wearing, how she was sitting, the dip in the couch when she sat down. This wasn't a dream. It was real. It felt real. There was something in my house with me that morning, and it was not my sister. I didn't tell anyone as a kid. I was always labeled imaginative, seeing things, hearing things, getting spooked easily. I eventually convinced myself there had to be some rational explanation. It took me years to finally tell my sister about it. Mostly, I stayed quiet because I didn't want to seem crazy, and I didn't want to scare her. But something she told me in September of 2022 changed everything. We were waiting in line for a ride at a local amusement park. Every year, my dad's workplace rented a whole park for employees and their families. We spent the day together, but about an hour before closing, my sister and I split off to ride some of the night rides. We were sitting in line, bored and barely talking. We were not very close, and we didn't have much in common. Then out of nowhere, she said, "Kat, want to hear something freaky?" As a lover of all things spooky, I immediately said yes. Part of me wishes I had said no. My sister is a night owl. Over the summer, she stayed up until 6 a.m. almost every night. At the time, I had just switched jobs and was going to bed around midnight, waking up at 10, so she was always the only one awake at night. One night around 3 a.m., she noticed light coming from the crack underneath her bedroom door. And she heard voices, my voice and our mom's. She said it sounded like we were talking to each other, but the words were either too fast or pure gibberish. She grabbed her phone, checked the time, and grew confused. Why would we be awake at 3 a.m.? Sometimes, if the weather was bad or if we heard sirens, my mom and I would look out the front window to be nosy. So my sister assumed that's what we were doing. After a few minutes, she could still hear us, still see the light. Finally, she got curious and opened her door. The hall was pitch black, silent, empty. No lights, no voices, no mom, no me, not even the cats. She checked my room. I was asleep, with both cats curled up beside me. She checked our parents' room, both asleep. Now, my sister is a rational person. She's the only one who never gets scared, who says ghosts and monsters aren't real, so she brushed it off and forced herself to forget. But she admitted that ever since then, the house felt different. Not terrifying, just watched, like something sat in the corners, observing. When she told me that, I got chills. I laughed it off in public, but inside, I was terrified. When we left the ride later, I told her what happened to me, that I saw her in the house that morning years ago, that I talked to her, that I remember everything she did. She went pale. I'll never forget her face. "I wasn't home," she kept saying. "I wasn't home." So who was it? We still don't know. We're not sure we want to know, but we do know one thing. There's something in the house.